Sports are full of strange superstitions and traditions, and gymnastics is far from the exception to this rule. In fact, gymnastics has some of the strangest routines and traditions in all of sports. That's why in today's video, we're going to be looking at some strange warm-up routines and traditions from gymnastics history. Stick around because any real gymnastics fan is not going to want to miss a second of this video. First up, we have gymnastics bear crawls. This one is honestly pretty wild, which is hilarious because it is kicking off our list. So trust me, you're in for a wild video. This stretch is weird, but honestly really great for warming up a gymnast due to the amount of stress their shoulders, knees, elbows, and hips all go through during a regular season on the floor or bars. The gymnastics bear crawl stretch is unique as it is very different from a normal bear crawl. A normal bear crawl is a stretch used in pretty much any court sport like volleyball or basketball and sees the athlete essentially go on all fours and crawl with their butt high in the air. The stretch is less about walking and more about stretching your back muscles by making them reach down to the floor while your lower back and butt are straight up in the air, making your back get a full dynamic stretch. In a gymnastics bear crawl, the athlete will get into a downward dog yoga position to get the starting posture right. Palms on the floor with your arms shoulder width apart, toes on the ground with your butt arches high in the air. But where this begins to differ is the athlete will then hop up onto their tippy toes and put all of their weight on their shoulders and elbows and then begin to move. Additionally, the athlete is not to bend their knees when they walk, but rather keep their legs locked in tight to put more of the effort and weight on the athlete's arms. This stretch is great for warming up your shoulder blades, shoulder joint, and elbow joint without putting the athlete in too harmful of a position should the athlete get tired or injure themselves. However, it's strange and kicking off this list because frankly it looks ridiculous. I mean, you literally walk like all of your hinge joints don't function and it looks insane and hilarious to anyone watching. But it is a worthwhile stretch, so don't let the ridiculousness of this stretch keep you from fully working out your muscles prior to training because you will certainly regret it. Next, crab walks. Now, I'm sure most of you watching are gymnasts or at least have some interest in the sport. But even if you aren't, I know that you've heard of crab walks because you were all kids at some point. And I know you've done these at one point or another because at the very least, these things are pretty fun to do. Crab walks are a great stretch and a great workout for your arms, shoulders, back, and core, but they can be potentially dangerous. So if you're going to do these, be extra careful and take your time. A crab walk is essentially trying to look as silly as possible while also trying to prepare yourself for a very intense session of gymnastics down on all fours. To start crab walking, you get down on the floor seated on your butt. Then you put your feet flat on the ground and turn your palms flat on the floor so that the tips of your fingers are pointing away from the rest of your body. Then you use your arms to prop yourself up so the only part of you that is touching the ground is your palms and feet. Then begin to walk either forwards or backwards. I recommend forwards because if you fall down, you don't risk your entire body weight crushing down on your propped up forearm. But technically, you can do these going either direction. Additionally, you go much faster going backward, and the weight of the athlete will be felt more on the arms and shoulders if the athlete is going backward. But these are just a fun way of warming up, so don't feel the need to go insanely hard and hurt yourself prior to even beginning your gymnastics training. These are normally used for younger gymnastics athletes, but they will warm up the muscles of any aged athlete, so maybe give these a try before your next floor routine. Now we have inchworms. I'm not sure why every single odd stretch in the gymnastics world is named after an animal, but I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. And I am requiring all of you athletes out there to start doing these on a regular basis. Inchworms are pretty easy in terms of mechanics and steps, but can prove to be pretty difficult in practice. An inchworm starts with the athlete up on both feet, and then they will bend all the way down to the floor at the waist, keeping their legs as straight as they can, effectively stretching the athlete's hamstrings. Once the athlete is close to the ground, they will extend their arms to the floor so that their palms are on the floor. Once there, the athlete will begin to walk their palms along the floor, extending their body until they are in a full push-up position. position. Once they are in a push-up position, they will begin to walk their body back to standing, and they will do this as many times as they want to get a good stretch in their hamstrings, arms, back, and chest. If the athlete is more advanced or just wants to push themselves, they can actually do a push-up once they get to the push-up position during the stretch. This stretch is great because it stretches so many muscles in a very easy movement, while also allowing for the athlete to push themselves a bit farther if they so choose. This stretch lands on our list because it also looks a bit strange. It honestly looks like the athlete is trying to Spider-Man crawl their way around the gym and then deciding halfway through that they don't want to do that, so they hit the reverse button and stand up again. It's strange, but effective, especially for gymnasts, and that is what this list is all about. Up next, bridges. Sports rarely share rules or objectives. For example, football requires the players to score touchdowns in a certain amount of downs. Hockey requires the team to outscore the other by putting the puck in the net, and baseball requires one team to outscore the other by hitting a ball over a fence more times than the other. While they are all unique, they do share a great deal of the same stretches as the same group of muscles are used during the sport. But gymnastics is a bit different and has muscles used in very unique ways, which sometimes requires unique stretching. And there may be no other unique or downright weird stretch in gymnastics than bridges. Bridges require the athlete to start by lying flat on the floor and then putting their palms flat on the ground by their ears, so their elbows are bent right beside either side of their head. Then the athlete is to bend their legs at the knees so that their feet can be flat on the ground. Then the athlete uses their feet and their hands to push themselves up into the air and arch their back as hard as they can in order to resemble a bridge. This may seem like an insane stretch, and that's mostly because gymnastics is really the only sport that calls for a stretch like this to be necessary to ensure the athlete's safety. A bridge is a very useful stretch if the athlete is about to do handsprings, as the same motion is used to properly do a back or front handspring. Bridges can be dangerous, but because the athlete isn't moving, they should be fine to do these once they get the hang of them. Additionally, the stretch they get from a proper bridge is astounding and really loosens up the lower back and mid-back, allowing for the athlete to be properly warmed up throughout their entire body. Lastly, the splits. I know these aren't too out of place in other sports, but would any other sport practically demand their athletes be able to do the splits, not only in warm-up but also in a live competition? I don't think so. But in gymnastics warm-up and competition, this movement is completely necessary and will need to be done during warm-up to ensure that the athlete does not completely decimate their groin, hamstrings, or IT bands. While they can prove to be difficult, with a little flexibility training and some confidence, any gymnast can one day do the splits with relative ease. And they made this list because if gymnastics didn't exist, let's be honest, this move would be straight up inside. I mean, who would want to do that otherwise, right? It's painful and it's honestly sort of useless unless it's for a show in a competition. So when you think about it, this is definitely the strangest stretch associated with gymnasts, because without them, we probably wouldn't have this stretch at all. That's all we have for you guys today on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all in the next video.